Alrighty, so over the last couple of days, I've gotten a couple of questions asking me about how I gear Brunhild for the bird, and honestly, because she's a bird unit, I only really wanted to gear her that one specific way. So this is the team that I've been seeing a lot more people get to actual, stage 3, and I've actually seen screenshots of people beating it with this team. So this is kind of the team that I'm going to focus on right now. I didn't want to make it just on Brunhild specifically, just in case you did want to see any of these characters gear per se. So I'm just gonna go over this entire team itself. It's just 4 units. If you don't need all of those, obviously feel free to click off at any time. But obviously, first up is Brunhild. So Brunhild is probably the most interesting one because obviously in floor 1 phase 4 you pretty much have to get nothing but these power strike cards, and so the big kicker here is you want to make sure that because it's so hard to deal damage on the bird in that phase, you want to make sure that you have a lot of crit chance. So the big thing is to build an attack crit damage set, so that way you can actually deal bigger crit damage when you do crit. And then for all of the pieces, you basically just want to go as much crit chance as you possibly can. Obviously some of these rolls could be a little bit better, but I'm not trying to break the bank on anvils and hammers and stuff like that, and I don't think that it's doing fine the way it is right now, so I'm not worried about like investing even more into just a couple of pieces of gear. I don't think those couple of point something percent rolls are really going to help me that much, but yeah, you basically want to go as much crit chance as you possibly can. I have seen a couple of people where they'll leave, a really good attack roll here and there, because sometimes, I don't know what it is about this game, but when you roll specific gear, or when you're trying to get a specific substat, for some reason you always get the ones you don't want. And as soon as I started rolling for crit chance, there was of course a couple of good attack rolls in there, which is normally what you would want to go for, but I just ended up going strictly crit chance. I just wanted to go as much crit chance as possible just to try to make sure that I could get an actual crit off, because basically in that phase, if your damage is low and you're on the brink of losing the match because you can't deal damage, because if you don't know, in that phase, if you don't deal damage during your phase, it puts I think like a corrosion stack on you, and basically if you once you get that corrosion stack, if you don't kill on the next turn, next time it ticks over, it basically just insta kills your entire team. It doesn't absolutely kill them, like I've survived with a little bit of HP every once in a while, but it pretty much wipes out your entire team. So you want to make sure that you're at least dealing damage, and the best way to do that is to make sure that she crits, because obviously a crit is going to do a lot more damage than a regular attack will. So having the crit chance is going to help you sort of guarantee not death. So that's basically the whole thing here. The rest of these just have normal substats on them. HP is fine, defense is fine. Normally I would go a lot more on the HP rolls for these. Like normally I would try to hammer a lot of these like slower or like lower rolls out on these kind of gears, but because she's literally only being used for the bird, normally she's not even the character that the bird ends up targeting. It's either Gother or Matrona, because she's going to have the taunt on. I wasn't too worried about her having absolute maximum HP or anything like that, because it's a PvE event. I don't even need to have like super high CC for it or anything anyway, but yeah, in normal cases I try to like max out those HP rolls. Moving on, next character we'll just go for Gother. If you have green Gother, he's obviously fantastic as a unit, but I just use the exact same set that I've literally had for him forever, which is just a HP defense set. I don't know that there would be anything better to use per se. I think one of the guys that I talked to a lot, he was actually experimenting with a resistance set a little bit, not necessarily like a resistance set, but it was an HP defense set with resistance rolls on his defense pieces, which is actually really interesting. But I've seen before, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Chixwa, who's another YouTuber. He does a lot of guild boss battles and stuff like that on his channel, and like I've seen him experiment with resistance rolls before, and sometimes it's like resistance can be like massive. Like the enemy will literally just patience on you because your resistance is so high they just can't deal damage to you. I'm not saying that's the best way to go. If you want to experiment with that and maybe make an SSR set of HP defense or something, you could try it out, but I just use a regular HP defense. It does the job just fine for me. I think if that ended up being like a major thing, like if a lot more people were messing around with it and it ended up being very good, I would maybe try to make 2 extra pieces for this and roll those to resistance, because if it was between, you know, taking a lot of damage on Gother, because if the bird can, for some reason, Gother is just his arch enemy. He will just try to destroy Gother at any moment. So yeah, if it would help him, you know, actually survive a little bit more, I would probably try to go for it, because, you know, the bird is already hard enough to deal with. But yeah, I literally just have regular rolls on these. I've had this gear set for a really long time. I'm really surprised I haven't tried to max out the you know, the substats on these. The only reason I'm even messing with the substats on these in general is just because I use Gother a lot for a lot of activity, so it would obviously benefit me to have all of these gear rolls maxed out if possible. But yeah, we'll just hit this one right here, and then we'll move on, because I'm not trying to do all that right now. But next up is Margaret. So Margaret is really, really good for the bird right now. Obviously, a lot of people were using Liz, and I've heard a couple of different people say you should remove Gother and put Liz on instead. But I think Gother is just a really, really nice character to have, because you can obviously rank up your cards and stuff like that. So on, you know, floor 1, you can get, you know, gold power strike cards. That way you can do big damage to the bird in the last phase. Obviously, there is a damage cap. So it just depends on, you know, what you're doing, how you're playing and everything like that. But I really like Margaret because of the Bless card. It's fantastic for it. It helps, you know, lighten the load, or lighten the damage at least for, you know, the whole team. And obviously there's certain phases where he removes buffs, but, you know, it's still good. The attack card has charge on it, so it actually deals a pretty fair amount of damage. The ultimate is single target, and it has Sever on it, so it more than likely deals a good amount of damage. Mine is only 1/6, obviously, and it still does, you know, just fine. For the bird, though, I use an attack crit damage set just to try to get as much damage off as possible. I do have an HP defense set as well. It was originally made for my other loot OCL, and I'm pretty sure it's completely maxed out. But you can see I just have regular rolls on this, but it's mainly because this is also a unit that I use for PvP and PvE, other stuff besides the bird. So generic rolls are just kind of what I use for this. It's pretty standard, pretty regular, nothing really to talk about there besides, you know, crit damage obviously helps you crit harder, and then, you know, the rest of this is standard stuff. So you could probably run an HP defense set if you wanted to for more survivability, but like I said, more often than not, if he attacks anyone except for the taunting, you know, unit, it's more than likely going to be Gother, so I don't really see her taking a lot of damage, especially if she has her buff up. So last but not least is Matrona. We're actually supposed to be getting her gloves and her hat for this set in the next couple of days, because it should be on the next update, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the events. But the gear that I chose for her is just a regular HP defense set. I have heard that a couple of people are doing just full defense sets, like triple defense, which doesn't sound terrible, but it just really wasn't what I thought would be best. I thought, you know, more HP, but obviously if you have a ton of defense, they're going to deal less damage, which in turn doesn't makes you not have to worry about having as much HP. But I just prefer the regular sort of set, just in case I want to use her in anything else, because she's not actually locked to a specific game mode by any means. So you can use her in PvP, you can use her for other PvP or other PvE events. So I just went with regular sort of stuff here, literally just regular base rolls, nothing insane. Actually, some of these are pretty bad. This actually needs to be worked on quite a bit, but this was like the most recent set that I've put together, so I still haven't messed around with all of my substat rolls on this one. But for the most part, they're okay. Obviously, some of them can still use some work, but pretty standard stuff. I don't know if it was really even needed to go over some of this stuff, but I just wanted to say, you know, what I'm using, how I'm using it. If you guys, I don't take me as, you know, the end all be all. I literally haven't even beaten stage 2 of the bird yet, so obviously some of this stuff could not be ideal. If you have beaten stage 2 or even stage 3 and you use these characters, if you're using any sort of interesting, you know, gear rolls or anything like that, feel free to let me know. Feel free to write it down in the comments. Maybe somebody else, you know, might take inspiration from it. You might help them out with, you know, just helping them figure out what would maybe work a little bit better than what I'm using. So I don't know. I don't want you guys to think that I'm just making a guide on, you know, this is how you need to gear your team for the bird raid, because obviously I'm just a regular guy, I'm just a regular player, you know, nothing special going on here. So that's pretty much what I'm using. If you want to take that as sort of, you know, base value, like what you should kind of be going for, you know, by all means, that's what's going on for me. I think obviously the biggest deal with the bird at the moment is just RNG. So if you know, are having a lot of trouble with specific characters, obviously, you know, UR gear does help a ton, and this is supposed to be like very, very late game content, like absolutely like end all be all list, like this is the hardest content in the game right now. So obviously anything you can do to buff up your characters is going to help. So costumes, any of that stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the base team that I've been using. It's the one that I see people sort of get the most consistent results out of. Not saying that you can't use other teams. If you are using other teams, you know, feel free to let me know. I don't know. I've seen a ton of different people use different stuff. I've seen full angel teams. I've seen a lot of people using Tarmiel lately. I see a big debate on whether or not you should use green Liz or red Liz, especially for floor 1. But I don't know. As far as longevity's sake, this team seems to be very consistent. It can actually beat floor 1 fairly easily as long as you get decent RNG. I'm still trying to figure out all of the ins and outs of floor 2 so that way I can actually beat it and start to beat it consistently, hopefully. And then I've seen, you know, people in my Discord alone have used this team to beat floor 3. I've seen, you know, screenshots of their, you know, completed all 3. So I don't know. It just seems like the best team as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, late game content, very, you know, hard stuff. So if you don't have these units, don't feel bad. It's just kind of something that like they were trying to push out to make people actually work towards something, I guess. But that's it from me. Hopefully this helped. Like I said, if you have any other suggestions for people's gear or anything like that, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I would love to see what you guys are putting on your stuff for this bird fight to make it a little bit easier or maybe work better or synergize with your characters. I don't know. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe for more content in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you then.